Um, Next thing I wanted to talk about was Anfernee Simons.
Yeah,
I've been hearing a lot of people just kind of pencil in either a deadline trade for Anfernee Simons or letting him walk away in the offseason. He seems to me like a really tough guy to trade and a really tough guy to tell what his value is because he can go off for 20 and a quarter like we saw tonight. And he does have the kind of shot creation that normally teams pay a lot of money for and will give up assets for. But also, he has such a low defensive reputation around the league because a lot of teams kind of remember the Portland version of him, where he has gotten improved some, especially on ball, since coming to the Celtics. But we're also having entire halves where we play him 2 minutes or he disappears in games for us. So I don't know how much we're raising his trade value around the league. So
that's kind of what I've been keeping my eye on these past few games is like, what are we doing with Anfernee Simons, and does that kind of give any clues on what we're thinking for his future? And it does seem like games like today, I'm like, this is great, not just because he kept us in this game, but because it does give us something to kind of pitch to other teams. And then that second half happens, and it's he's a tough player to kind of get a good value on. I think you're right about that.
yeah, and I'm not team tank this year. I know some people want us to sell off assets and
I
just
just don't
kind
think
of
we can lose enough games for a tank to be successful unless we sit Jalen Brown for the season. Like it's just not happening. So I don't want to. We can do like a halfway tank and get a 12th pick, maybe. And I just don't feel like that's worth it.
yeah, I'm not saying we tank, but I am saying any moves we make this year shouldn't be to win this year. They should be with an
Agree.
eye on winning next year. And if we don't plan on re-signing Anfernee Simons, which it's hard to see a world where we do re-sign Anfernee Simons, because I think there's two possibilities. One, he plays really well, and then we want to re-sign him, but we can't afford him. Or he plays poorly, and then we don't want to re-sign him, even though we could afford him.
Yeah.
So I think that there is a lot of reason to look at a trade, and I did come up with a few
Hmm.
that I don't love any of them, just because I do want to make sure they're kind of realistic to the other team, and I don't think any is gonna blow us away with assets. I started this thinking I was gonna try to just get an expiring and a first for 'em. And in the off season, I know there was some talk about Vooch for Anfernee Simons, but I just don't think, with the way Chicago's playing, that they're going to entertain that at all. Uh,
Something would have to happen pretty dramatically between now and the trade deadline for sure.
so I came up with a few. I'm gonna try to flash these on the screen, but for you, I'll read them aloud. I came up with a couple to send him to the Bucks. They really need some shot creation when Giannis isn't on the floor. They also could really use some outside shooting. So the first one, which is just a two-team trade, would be Anfernee Simons and Xavier Tillman to the Bucks for Kyle Kuzma, Jericho Sims, Cole Anthony, and the swap in 2027.
Okay.
Now, I do like Jericho Sims is just an energy big. He can really rebound, springy guy. I think Cole Anthony can kind of do an impression of what we've been getting from Anfernee Simons. So I think they could help us this year. Kyle Kuzma, really just a contract at this point. I don't know that I even want him playing over some of the wings we've discovered this year. He definitely has a much higher offensive ceiling than them. And he is signed through next year. So he's 22 million this year and next year.
Yeah. I don't know who said I that might be both teams say no.
Interesting. Yeah. I think
I
Ryan
mean
Rollins breaking out for the
that's the
Bucks.
thing. And I think the fact that Cole Anthony can do 80 to 90% of what Anthony Simons can do, I think the Bucks just don't need it badly enough. And I think,
Yeah, he hasn't been playing a ton for them. Neither has Jericho Sims, just because they've been getting more out of other guards and other bigs. Um, so it could be a chance for them to honestly just move on from Kuzma and get a shot at having a guy who can lead a bench unit so that you can keep Ryan Rollins and Giannis together because they do seem to play really well. Um, the
I
other
think the,
idea I had off of the Bucks was a three-teamer
okay.
where we send that pick swap, Kyle Kuzma, and a minimum to the Nets with other assets of ours for a Nick Claxton. So we don't have to give up as many picks as if we were just sending Anfernee Simons. Um, it would probably still be at least our 2031 unprotected with the Bucks 2027 swap.
Yeah, I like that deal for us. I mean, if it gets us Nick Claxton for one first round pick and Anford, like I don't hate that for us. I think Brooklyn, the question is, could they get more elsewhere for Nick Claxton? And I think that's kind of where you hit the hurdle. If we can make that deal, I make it tomorrow. But again, I just don't know
The
whether
Bucks, I
Brooklyn on
think,
an open market and whether the Bucks are kind of yeah. I think it also, and you alluded to this in the first trade proposal, it really depends on because Anfernee Simons is not a bad get for what the Bucks are trying to do. If you're again building a bench unit for those non-Giannis minutes, somebody who can come in and again just drop 15 and a quarter, drop 20 and a quarter,
and be a great
and they
off-ball shooter, which they do need more of around Giannis.
yeah, and would be able to again he is expiring but they'd be able to extend him and it would kind of fit into their whole salary cap situation. I think it does. A lot of this also depends on like how confident are they that Giannis is there next year 2 years from now, and that's kind of the thing with the Bucks that makes it a little tricky. um
I think
but I do
they're so deep in at this point after the Miles Turner trade that I don't think they're going to be holding on to the swaps they have the next few years. I mean, they're already so depleted that that's really only a chance to move up a few spots. And it's only interesting if you think Giannis is going to demand out.
yeah
Um, Next team I looked at was the Mavs.
okay
They're not off to a good start. They could really use a ball handler, and I think there's a chance. This is probably if Nico gets fired by the deadline, which I think is quite possible.
yeah
So the money is Anfernee Simons, Baylor Shireman, and Xavier Tillman for Klay Thompson and Daniel Gafford.
whoa okay
I'm saying 3 seconds from our end
mm-hmm
because I think Daniel Gafford does have real value, even if they are looking to get off the Klay Thompson contract, which has been rumored since he's fallen out of their rotation at this point. Daniel Gafford's on a 4 year, $14 million a year deal, which
yeah,
is a really good value for a starting center.
and I like what he does as a center.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Daniel Gafford. I think Nico Harrison, because he was one of Nico's kind of big finds, would be less likely to shop him than if a new GM came in and was just kind of rebuilding around Cooper Flag. But if that happened, this probably wouldn't be their first trade. I would look to shop AD first. But if they're looking to pick up um, kind of valuable assets, Baylor Shireman, second draft guy to give a shot on a rebuilding team. 3 seconds is decent value when you're also getting off a contract.
Yeah, I don't hate that one. Again, I'm a big Daniel Gafford fan, and I think Klay Thompson is still a NBA player. Obviously, not the Golden State Klay Thompson, but especially if he's able to still shoot the three at even just on catch and shoots, I think would be a valuable part of what we do offensively, just in terms of a guy that Derek White and Peyton Pritchard and Jaylen Brown don't have to second guess passing to off of drives. I like that trade a lot. I think Dallas probably does ask for more. I think they want a first at least, even if they're trying to get off Clay's contract. I think, yeah, I mean, I don't hate that deal. I think Dallas probably needs a little bit more, but I might be willing to do. Again, it is kind of, we don't have the draft assets that we used to just throw around, so it
Yeah.
becomes, is Daniel Gafford going to be our guy that we're like using those assets on? Um, and that, if we can get them for just a couple second rounders along with those contracts, I'm fine with it. If it costs more, I think it becomes a more difficult conversation, and I think it probably does require a little bit more on our end.
The next one I had was the two rumors that came out this offseason were that we had discussed Anfernee Simons trades with the Bulls and with the Pistons. I
The
know that
Pistons is what I had.
the Pistons had fallen apart in the offseason because we wanted Anfernee Simons for Jaden Ivey, and they wanted this year's pick included for value. I don't think at this point we're getting Jaden Ivey back.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he's been injured for a lot of this year, I think his upside is just too high for them to give up on him for a guy that's not going to be as big a piece of their team moving forward. I do think they see Anfernee Simons as a guy who would fit next to Cade, as a guy who can kind of play the one, but really just be a flamethrower
Off
shooter.
ball shoot. Yeah.
So, what do you think of no picks, but just Anfernee Simons for Karis LeVert, Paul Reed, and Javonte Green? We would need to cut some guys after this because we would be at least one over on uh, roster spots.
Yeah. I mean, a
But it would
homecoming for
save us
Javante
5 million.
Green.
So it's not like we would be. It would bring us below the first apron at least.
Yeah. I haven't looked at it. What kind of contract is Paul Reed on?
2 years, 5 million a year.
Okay. I think Paul Reed is the piece in that thing for me.
He's kind of fallen out of their rotation.
Yeah,
He's
but
played a yeah. They have a
they
deep big
have
man rotation.
yeah, and so that's kind of where
Karis
I had
LeVert
been
can
playing around
do
with.
what Anfernee Simons does for us. Maybe a little bit more defense. Not as high level a shooter. He's another guy that's all three of these guys have really fallen out of Detroit's rotation. So for them, they're kind of giving up guys who don't play for a guy who would play. And for us, it's a way to replace him in the short term, save some money, and um, kind of shore up our big man rotation a little bit.
Yeah, it's not a bad deal. I'm kind of ambivalent on it.
It's a last minute at the trade deadline deal, probably. Where if we
Yeah,
can't get assets, this might be like a break glass in
yeah.
case of emergency. But I also just, in my heart, I feel that Anfernee Simons has played too well for a deal that's break glass in case of emergency.
Yeah, I was gonna say like I some of these trades I would make, some of them like would need alteration, I think. Some of them the other team would want more or I would want more. Ultimately, I think just become much more comfortable over the past couple games of let's just play out the season with Anthony Simons and let him walk and open up that trade exception for what was it, $22 million from Porzingis, I believe.